Angie Mark, and I am back with another video. And today I'm going to be going over my daughter's 25 months having been sister-locked, and there's quite a lot to catch up on because we kind of went MIA. So let's jump right in. One of the first things that I really wanted to talk about was really as a mother going out to other mothers, especially mothers of daughters who are choosing what to do with their children's hair. Something that I noticed with Cruz, so I don't know if you guys haven't been following my channel for a while, you may not know that I did for a time have a business where I was offering services for starting people's locks professionally. I have since taken a step back away from that, but I'm adding that information to say that that played a large part into why I decided to actually do my daughter's hair myself. Something that I realized after the fact is that, one, I think I did a phenomenal job with establishing her hair, if I do say so myself. But I will say that 2 years in, I realized something that I think anyone with locks kind of understands, that there's a level of permanency when it comes to locks. And so mistakes that are made during the establishment process are very difficult and at sometimes impossible to correct later on. So when you're dealing with your daughter, a little girl who is, because she is your child, really kind of hoping for you to make the best decision for her, you need to really ask yourself if going the DIY route or going the paid service route is really the best option for you. And you'll really need to be honest with yourself when making that decision. If you're someone who is really good with hair, you know how to part precisely, you're very confident in what you're doing, I would say going the DIY route for Microlocs or locks of any size for that matter is a good idea. But if you know that you kind of struggle in the hair department, I would strongly recommend that you consider going with a paid professional at the very least to establish your daughter's locks for you. And then if you decide that you want to take over the maintenance, that's perfectly fine. All that to say, looking back, I followed the Sisterlocks grid for establishing my daughter's hair to the T. Having more professional experience, having a bit of time to kind of figure out how I like grids to look, and you know what I prefer. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would actually probably not choose Sisterlocks again. I would instead choose a Microlocs grid. And the reason for that is because with the Sisterlocks system, it is intentionally designed in for the locks at the front to be smaller than the locks at the back. And I followed their system to a T because I wanted to make sure to give my daughter the best foundation possible. So I didn't take any shortcuts. I didn't get sloppy with my work at all. I was very precise in the way that I was parting her. Now, knowing what I know, I would probably scrap that, not do Sisterlocks again, do Microlocs and give her uniform locks all across her head the same size. Reason being is because the larger locks in the back of her head are, in my opinion, the perfect size. If anything, I would have made them maybe just a hair smaller, but the overall aesthetic would have probably been exactly the same. The real issue came in for me is that the locks at the front are very, very small. Fortunately for us, we haven't lost any locks. I think that she has very strong hair, and we've been being really diligent to take care of her roots and be very gentle with them as to not disrupt the strength of the foundation of her locks. But even still, they're a little bit too small for my liking. And so what I have done over the past couple of months is combine some of those. So knowing what I know now, I would have made the locks in the front the exact same size as the locks in the back. Would have given her a little bit of a difference of appearance, but not so much that it would have taken away from the overall beauty of her hair. All that to say, if you have a daughter who's going to be committing the full length of her hair and committing any length that she grows in the coming years with her locks, I would say you should ask yourself, are you the right person? Do you have the skill, the technical skill level to do a really good job at establishing her foundation? If not, going with a paid service to at the very least establish the locks for you and for her would probably be the best route, because again, adjusting things with the grid once locks have started to mature and form is really not an option, and you don't want any regrets, because with locks, I would recommend that you look at it as a permanent style. And so when you're dealing with what's not even your own hair, but someone else's hair, you want to try to make the best decision for them, especially if it's your daughter that we're talking about. Another thing that I learned along the way with my daughter's journey is that conditioner is the devil. And now I say that with an asterisk because I know a while ago I made a video talking about how I was considering putting conditioner in my locks and, you know, just kind of like thinking that through. I think that conditioner can be a really good part of someone's hair journey depending on what kind of hair they have. My daughter is fully in the type 3 family, and I have found that when you're dealing with Microlocs, Sisterlocks on type 3 hair, conditioner is going to undermine your journey significantly. And unfortunately, I didn't learn that until after I had already started applying conditioner to her hair. I didn't want to run the risk of her hair drying out, and so we would wash it as normal, and then I would just put some conditioner. Interestingly, the conditioner did nothing to disrupt the length of her locks. Her locks are locked and they are not wanting to come undone. Where I ran into issues was with her roots, which makes sense because her roots are not yet locked. They're the newest part of the lock, and so they haven't had as much time to settle as the rest of her locks have, or the rest of the length has. And so what I found is that we were applying conditioner, and then after a while, her roots got so unruly that I could barely find the parts, and I didn't actually know how to address that, so I kind of just retightened the best that I could. And then after a while, it became apparent that I was going to have to reestablish her parts, and that's exactly what I had to do. I did have to reestablish her parts. That the hairs just got so mangled together that I had to do quite a bit of cutting to separate locks. I was so afraid during that time because I was like, in order to get these parts back together, I'm gonna have to cut, but like, is the degree to which I'm cutting going to weaken her locks so much that we start seeing locks fall out or locks thinning? Again, fortunately, I feel like God was kind of guiding my hands and guiding me through that process, because while it's like, it's just a hairstyle, I was kind of like, my daughter has trusted me with her hair, and I want to make sure that I'm doing the best that I can. So I feel like it was a big deal to me. And so I was praying about it, and I was asking God to give me wisdom. And in the end, everything worked out. Like I said, we didn't lose any locks. There was one lock that was thin, and I could see it was thin from me having had to cut some of the roots to separate them. And so in that particular instance, while the lock was still there, and I think if given time it would have regained its fullness, I just decided to snip that and then add the roots to a neighboring lock because it was already a small lock to begin with. That was one of the locks that was at the front, which in hindsight I realized those were made too small anyway. So I went ahead and combined that. You'll see throughout the video that in some instances she has flyaways at her roots. That's from the cutting. The density of her hair has remained intact and full and completely there. But where I did have to cut, you'll see some of those little tiny hairs sticking out around the roots of her locks, and that's what that's from. So again, the takeaway, no conditioner. I would say that if you are a type 3 hair person and you do Sisterlocks or Microlocs, I would say avoid conditioner. Oil is sufficient. Wash it as normal. I usually take some olive oil, rub it between my hands, coat her hair, and that's enough. Should my second daughter desire to have locks, which she probably will, as she is already asking for them now, I will not make that mistake of applying conditioner to her hair because her hair is even straighter than Cruz's is, so I just know that the conditioner is not going to work for us. So as it stands right now, retightenings take us about 3 to 4 days. It shouldn't really take that long, but I think because of her age and the fact that we had to deal with that reestablishing of her parts, so there's kind of like, I got to be kind of precise in how I separate the locks. It takes about 3 to 4 days, and we do retighten every 6 to 8 weeks. Again, I suspect that as I will never put conditioner in her hair again, I think that her hairs will kind of like just go into the lock that they're supposed to be, and I'll be able to get through her retightenings a little bit quicker. On a professional front, I would finish people's hair in about 3 hours. And it was a full retightening. So for it to take 3 to 4 days, I think that's because of age and also because of the fact that I just have those little hairs that I'm having to kind of get in place so that I don't end up in that same problem again where I have to reestablish her parts. Another interesting thing to think about is her ends never locked. You'll see depicted in some of the video footage that I captured that her roots are markedly locks. Like, they are thick, beautiful, woven, clearly woven ropes of hair. And then her ends look like they are newly established. And interestingly, I saw this same phenomenon happen while I was practicing professionally as well. And what I noticed is it happened to two groups of people. If you started your locks on hair that is significantly longer, what I found is that usually the ends didn't lock. If you started with very long hair, the ends just don't lock. The other thing is that the closer you get to the type 3 hair, if you have type 3 hair and it's long, the ends don't lock. If you started on longer hair but it's type 4, you have a better chance of the full length locking. Long story short, if you want your hair to lock from root to tip uniformly, no issues, start on shorter hair. Because that phenomenon, like, at first I was like, I wonder, are the ends gonna lock? And then I started doing other people's hair and I saw the same thing, and it was always with people who had longer hair, or they had long hair and they had 3C hair. So it's just something that's interesting. I don't think that her ends are going to lock, and I'm totally fine with that. I think that it looks very beautiful, it looks very full, and so it's no issue for me, and I don't think it'll be an issue for her. Another thing to think about when you are starting locks on little kids, and it's not even little kids because the same thing happens with adults too, is that lint is a real battle. Lint is a real battle for us. Our daughter is an active little girl, and so she's a rough and tumble, rolling on the floor, playing on the carpet with her sister, and so lint is in her hair. I think that even if you are not a child, you're still going to deal with some lint in your hair. Every now and then I may find a piece of lint in my locks, but not nearly as much lint as what I find in Cruz's hair. And at one point, I think that because she does have more lint than I do, but she doesn't have so much lint that I'm like, okay, like, we need to cut this or we need to dye it or something. Like, it's not to that degree. But if you are someone who is very particular about lint and what that might look like in your child's hair, you need to consider that before you put locks in your daughter's hair. I would also say for us, if I know that Cruz is going to be engaged in some activity that might just in some way get something stuck in her hair, I'll usually braid up her hair in two like cornrows going back. I'll roll the ends under, and if necessary, I may just wrap her hair. Usually the braids are enough just to kind of keep her hair kind of tucked up and out of the way, but if not, I'll wrap it too. And so it's just bear that in mind, that this isn't like having loose hair with kids where, like, if they roll around in the sand and then they get home, you can just wash it out. Like, this will be a different kind of situation with children. So bear that in mind, and certainly bear it in mind when it comes to lint. In this clip, I wanted to kind of just capture what her hair looks like when it has been freshly retightened, and then also when it has some loose new growth. So you'll see at the top, that's clearly the part that I've yet to retighten. That's the last little section we have left to go. And what's below is what was just retightened. And yeah, I would say again, I feel like anyone who is kind of in the YouTube space, or if you're someone who like avidly watches hair videos, you probably know this already, but I'm just going to tell you anyway. Please don't be obsessed with neatness at the roots, especially when it comes to maintaining locks, and especially when it comes to maintaining locks with interlocking. What you don't want to do is be so obsessed with your child having super neat roots with no hair out of place that you find yourself interlocking too frequently, and then potentially damaging your daughter's hair and even your daughter's ability to grow hair because of just the trauma of just it constantly being pulled. Do your trial and error, so to speak, but determine what a good appropriate cycle for retightening your child's hair is, and stick to it, and don't adjust it just because they may have a hair that's a little bit more frizzy than it normally is. That's a great way to traumatize your child's scalp. And again, because I did have that time working professionally with people's hair, unfortunately I did have some clients who came to me with scalps that had been traumatized from their hair being pulled, or from some way or another their scalp getting traumatized to the point that their hair would not grow in those areas. And sometimes these things are not reversible. So you don't, as a mother, want to inhibit your own daughter's hair, her scalp's ability to produce hair. So be careful about you know, the retightening. Don't be so obsessed with, you know, the neatness that you cause any sort of, even inadvertently cause trauma. Most of the time, Cruz's hair looks exactly like what you see at the top. Her retightening doesn't stay fresh for very long. I would say probably 2.5, 3 weeks maybe. And then after that, it's frizzy, and that's fine. The last thing I wanted to mention, because I think it is worth mentioning, kids change their minds. Cruz is very enthusiastic about having locks. When she first started, it was actually not my idea. I never actually intended on locking either one of my children's hair. It was not something that I ever even thought to do, but she did ask me. We did talk it over with Daddy, and as a family, we decided to lock her hair. In about a year and a quarter, maybe a year and a half in, she started saying that she started seeing pictures of herself as a child with an afro, and she really wanted that back. And I did take out a couple of her locks just to see like what would this process be like, and I quickly learned her hair wants to be locked, and so if we were going to change her hair, it would require that we cut it. In the end, we decided to make the decision for her that she would keep her locks, and I'm glad that we did that because her emotions and her feelings have changed just like that regarding her hair. One minute she wants locks, the next minute she didn't. We said, sorry babe, but you're keeping your locks. And then now she's like all about her locks again. And so it's just something to bear in mind that it is a thoughtful decision that you need to go, that getting locks is. It's a thoughtful thing. I wouldn't say get locks on a whim. You as a parent need to definitely consider the long-term ramifications, because again, you're going to be committing the full length of your daughter's hair, and any hair that she grows while having locks will be committed to locks. And so it's a big deal. It's something to think about, and then just be prepared for the fact that, you know, she may have second thoughts, and as the adult, you and your husband, you know, will make the decision about what's best. And then they may come to an age where you can say, okay, if you still don't desire to have your locks, then you can change it. But at this young of an age, you're going to deal with kids going back and forth. You know your children. Talk it out with your spouse and figure out what's next, and just understand that once you make the decision, the child may have some second thoughts, and then you as the adult kind of have to stand firm about what you will and will not do. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would say I will keep you updated, but honestly, I don't know. It took me a lot to get Cruz to film this video, and so we'll see. But I'm just letting you all know that we are still hanging in there strong. Her locks are coming along beautifully. I feel super blessed that God helped me to establish her locks. He's helped me to maintain them. He has helped me to figure out challenges as they've come, you know, as they've come, because I didn't, like I said, didn't have any experience with doing reestablishments. I wasn't sure if what I was doing was going to work. So I really give all of the praise and glory to God about that. And so, yes, as always, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Don't let the street